Hey guys, so today we're going to be taking another look at another studio session with, in this case, Ryan Tedder with his song Counting Stars and I Don't Want to Wait. Now, it's caught my attention because the John Summit video that we did. Variety has been doing a series of videos where they get into the studio with a specific artist and they're breaking down projects. So, really interested to see how he approaches his productions. One, because he's outside of the electronic space. He does work with a lot of EDM artists and writes on a lot of things. I mean, and on some big ones. But he's predominantly in more of like a pop type of atmosphere. So we're gonna see if he does anything there that can be applied to the techniques that you might use in electronic music. But let's check it out and start going from there.
I've been losing sleep. I'm wearing like all these bracelets I bought. You can hear them kind of clattering, I think, in this solo guitar. There it is. You hear it. You hear there it again, like coins. Hi, I'm Ryan Tedder from OneRepublic. I'm wearing the shortest shorts I own.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's a really good point. He just real quick, he brought up kind of like that Foley sound in the background. Now that's something that you might hear a lot in really subtle background atmospheric textures, because oftentimes, especially like in hip hop, for example, one of the most common things that I see people add is a vinyl texture. So that's just like a really subtle background, little noises, little scattered pops and things like that here and there. Adding Foley to your music like that, in his case, little coins or whatever. But it might be a sound that you layer with another sound to kind of add texture and add that organic feel to a sound.
And I'm here to take you through two songs. We have Counting Stars on the menu today. We also have OneRepublic and David Guetta, I Don't Want to Wait.
Yeah, that's perfect. Best of both
Counting
worlds.
Stars, I wanted that to be the first single. I was overruled, but I did put it as track one on the album for a reason. We thought that our first two singles had like kind of misfired, and this was our last shot. We didn't know as we were shooting the video for Counting Stars that If I Lose Myself was blowing up overseas. No one told us, had no idea. And turning into this monster European, Asia, Australia, everywhere. Lately, I've been losing sleep, dreaming about the things.
That does speak to an interesting point, and this is not necessarily in the production space, but more as like an artist and you're developing your sound and getting your music out there. A lot of times, your audience is out there, you just need to find it, and it's not going to be maybe where you expect it to be, So you might be, here in America, here in the US, making music thinking that you're going to be making music for, your bros down in the beach clubs, around LA and San Diego or wherever, I don't know. But sometimes you get these little pockets of people that really appreciate your music and sound and stuff like that. Even with mine, when I look at my analytics, I find that I would say I think a majority of my audience is actually outside of the U.S. and in a lot of places that I don't target specifically. So don't be discouraged that your music isn't reaching maybe your next door neighbor, but somebody across the world and a group of people across the world could be really messing with your stuff. So let's check it out.
I started it at a camp in the Hamptons writing for Beyonce. It was her self-titled album. I did the lead single on that album called XO. A lot of times if I'm put in a space where I'm focused on another artist, I will write my story because that's what I'm pulling from. And the first thing I recorded was, I think you can still hear I was wearing, this is back when like stacks of bracelets was cool 10 years ago, right? So I'm wearing like all these bracelets I bought. You can hear them kind of clattering, I think, in this solo guitar. There it is. You hear it. You hear there it again, like coins. And here's how you know I played it. It sucks. Like the guitars is not perfectly cadenced. It's not quantized. It's just like I did a bunch of takes till I got it. We used some synth, acoustic guitar. I always had a love-hate relationship with my own voice. The first two albums, I didn't like how pop it sounded. It drove me nuts. Like, I would always try to mess up my voice. Sometimes I'd like smoke a cigar and like intentionally inhale, which you're not supposed to do, just so I'd cough, just to get my voice to sound like rougher and warmer. So On this song, and on a few songs on this album, I lowered the key like 3-4 steps below anything we had done. I want to start singing lower and get into a different tone. I'm singing low, like. Lately, I've been losing sleep, dreaming about the things that we could be. The style of production in 2013-14 in terms of drums, if you were remotely a pop producer at all, unless you're cutting just live drums, you would do this stacking, like drum stacking, to create the feeling of live and like variances in.
Yeah, that's important because you know, even when you're trying to get an acoustic sound, what I see a lot of times that people do is that you really need to add sometimes that synthesized drum sample just to get it to punch through the mix. You know, today in modern music, especially when you're you know, jumping from song to song and you want some level of consistency as far as like what's going to be able to sound strong enough to kind of be alongside other songs that are well produced, is you need that layering. And that layering we talked about a little bit yesterday when I was talking about adding top kicks. It really makes the song have presence. It allows your drums to punch through. And like I said, with the level of production that we have these days, you need that, you know. Otherwise, it's not going to really stand out. It's going to sound dull, especially when people, you have to understand, they're listening to song after song after song all day, every day, and they're used to a certain type of sound. Now, you can go against the grain and you know, do your own thing. But if you are trying to be in that similar kind of genre or style, you want to consider that your song should be on par with the level of mix and production and punch that a song should have.
Keys, velocities, all these things. You know, that era, the drums were so muscular and so
Yeah.
they hit you in the face.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like Tayo Cruz songs, you know, Lady Gaga songs, all that kind of like synthy pop type of stuff that was coming out at that time was really heavy, and I listened to a lot of the drums that like Dr. Luke and I mean even in some of his own productions, Ryan Tedder, you know, Benny Blanco, when they were making those songs at that time, they were really punching through a lot.
And you couldn't get that from just one kick, one snare. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Probably, and you can even hear. I have like these weird on like left power pan left and right, like it sounds like crunching something, and they're like, it's like a weird folder of hip hop claps that I have that I staggered, so it goes like, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like crinkle wrap, right? Into the verse. And in the chorus, I go to ding digga ding digga ding digga ding digga ding digga ding, right? And the way I produce is that every 4 bars.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit because what's interesting is that at least in the kind of music that I make, what I found a lot is playing with rhythms helps a lot. So, for example, if you're in your verse, your intro, breakdown sections, you might have long sustained notes, for example, especially for your bass, where they're just playing hard, long whole notes. Boom, boom, boom. In the drop or chorus section where it gets a little bit heavier, there's more going on, you're really raising the energy. Adding rhythm to those kind of things just kind of lets the listener know this is the energetic part. And it evokes that feeling anyways. But that's something you want to play with. Don't keep those whole sustained notes all the time in your throughout the whole song, you know, because then it doesn't feel like anything's happening. It just feels like the same thing, and you're adding more and more, maybe in a different section, but it's just going to sound loud and messy and cluttered. So change the rhythms. That's going to give space to different things and give a different type of movement.
Bars, something is slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a fun story. This was recorded in Greece. I can like imagine like Grecian harpists for some reason, even though I don't. That's probably like from like Greek mythology, but like statues of people playing harps in Greece. And so when we got to Santorini, I was like asking the studio, we want a Greek harpist, Grecian harpist, and it's like, oh my God, we have one actually, a phenomenal one who's recorded here on the island in Santorini. She came through me or Zach learned the part on, we bought or rented an accordion and just figured out how to do these 2 notes. I think it's me. The intro, you know, yeah, we'll be counting stars. And then right here, 1, 2. The best lyric is, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Always have those elements in place to let people know there's a new section, there's something new coming. Every 8 bars, every 16 bars, find those sections where you're changing something or you want something new to happen. It's going to keep it interesting, but it's also going to let them know, hey, this is a new section. And it can pull someone in, you know, to that next part.
You know, everything that kills me makes me feel alive, which was kind of the line that became the line. But like coming into this section, we have, I had her pluck the harp and then I hit it with crystallizer. So it's going ching, 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 this shimmery stuff. Kills me, makes me feel alive. My other favorite element of this song is this little sound right here.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what I remember from the song.
That's where the gospel element comes in right here, right? Like,
what, the organ? Oh. The choir.
Recorded that in London. Had a background vocalist that had sung on, I think, some of the Adele stuff. The benefit of me constantly working with other artists, I'm constantly dipping in and out of their universes and what they're listening to. It's no different than like chefs cooking together or whatever. You're always getting different ingredients and recipes. So this bridge exists, guarantee it, because I was working with Adele at the same time.
Sure, yeah. I could hear that.
A lot of times it takes that, like working with a different artist, for you to feel okay about being more authentic to what you want to do. It gives you a hall pass to try stuff.
Yeah, so he talked a lot about there how he, I mean, you heard it. He took this song all across the world just to make it. It sounds like, you know, Greece, London, I'm sure they're in America. You got to pull from everywhere, whether it's someone else that you're working with that might be doing a different style, different music that you're hearing that is not maybe in the electronic genre, you know, just anywhere. It doesn't really matter. As long as it all comes together and you find a way to do that. That's the real job and gift of a producer, is being able to pull all these parts, find them, and make them work together, find their place in a song.
Throughout this song, there's some hey, right, that I've thrown. And some ho. This is before the Lumineers' Ho Hey. So when that song came out, I was like, oh my God, like we're all drinking from the same water supply, because it all came out around the same time, which is also why I tell artists all the time, if we stumble into a lyric or a song title that's a 10 out of 10, and the song is a 10 out of 10, you better race to get that thing out, because someone else just came up with the same idea.
Yeah.
I've had it happen 4 times, 5 times in my career, in 20 years, and I've been on the losing end of that equation, where someone a month earlier, a big artist drops the same title song, same idea, and then you're cooked. This very much represents that time, and I just find it so bizarre, some of the similarities and elements between whether it was like Avicii, the Lumineers. We were all drinking from the same water supply at that time. Baby, I just don't wanna wait.
All right, so we're switching to the David Guetta collaboration. Let's see. Because what's special about Ryan Tedder is he's a producer as well, obviously. You know, he has his skill set in that as well as a songwriter and vocalist and all this stuff. So for him to collab with someone like David Guetta, it'll be interesting how they fuse those worlds together. Because usually in the electronic collaborations, he's just a singer on it. I mean, I'm sure he has his hand in the production side, but he's known in the song as the singer. And then let's see how he approaches the production side, because I have a feeling he has the project. He's going to pull it up.
The process of the song started probably a year ago. David Guetta, who's a very close friend of mine, is constantly coming up with ideas for songs. He was like realizing how many of the songs from the late 90s and 2000s, like combing through all of them going, what else could breathe new life into? You know, the original version of this, the chorus was, Maya he, Maya ho, right? Which we all remember. But what's weird about this one is we didn't sample that. We interpolated the verse, which is so bizarre. The verse is now our chorus melody. Everything else is original. Everything else we did. That verse melody, David had the brilliant idea of taking that, making it a chorus melody. That was kind of it. Let's do a song, this melody, everyone's gonna remember it, especially in Europe. and he sent it to us. And he said he was nervous to send it though because he's like, if we don't nail this, he's like, it's cheesy. He's like, it's a big song, but it's almost.
That's what always makes me nervous about sampling certain things or remixing certain things, is that it can really come off as kind of corny. So it really has to be done right. For me, that's personally what I have trouble with right now with what I'm seeing in like in tech house and techno, where they're taking a lot of these songs from the late 90s, early 2000s, and they're just kind of throwing on some very generic drums and stuff like that. To me, it feels really cheesy a lot of the time, not always. So I want to see what they did to avoid that, because obviously they are very aware of that.
So obvious that like it runs the risk of being just too swinging for it, pop, corny.
Yeah.
This took me like 6 months or longer to come around on. My first instinct was no, I'm not doing it. What do I play? Piano and guitar.
Yeah.
Very much my style playing. So when we first got it though, that was gone. There was no guitar. It was more like this. I don't wanna wait, I don't wanna wait, got no reason not to celebrate. It's like bum 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 bum, almost like a classical music arpeggio, like similar to some of the other records that we've done in the past where there's like Secrets or Apologize. I slowly started warming up to it. I always knew the song felt like a hit. That said, with all those, my shamelessness surrounding hits, I do have certain lines I can't cross, and this song continually was across that line for me. By the way, it was also across the line for David. He was like, I'm not putting this out unless you can make it feel cooler. I know it's a hit, but it's like, it's too cheesy in his thick French accent. It's like, we need to make it cool, like uber cool, like much cooler. We had
He kind of nailed that accent. I've seen a lot of singers, they're really good mimics, you know? That's
band
funny.
elements, it's very simple. It's like live guitar, live drums, live bass, like all that stuff. And so we started implementing those things in one at a time in the world of OneRepublic, right? And then added some guitar here. And then you go, okay.
Yeah, so that's interesting contrast, because they could have taken, of course, naturally, as an electronic music producer, David Guetta went with like the synth arpeggios. And yeah, that's very reminiscent of even some of his own early songs. When you take the live piano that Ryan Tedder played and the guitar and stuff like that, it almost makes it sound like it's its own new thing, even though they're building off of something from the past.
Cool. We swung the song too far into OneRepublic land at some point, and so we had to kind of.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, once you start adding it, you have to balance it, though. You know, it's interesting.
With some of Guetta's more dancier elements, obviously, because it's a David Guetta record. So now we got bass and synth.
If you ever go back and watch the video of how they made Sky Full of Stars, when Avicii and Chris Martin were working on that, they did the Coldplay version, they did the Avicii version, and then Tetris the whole thing together. Those are their words. So yeah, you have to kind of do that, especially when you're taking two sides of things. So maybe you're not working directly with an artist that's not in the same genre as you, but let's say you're working with elements of a song that are from a different style. Maybe you do something that's kind of building strongly on one side, strong on the other, and then just start piecing them together.
It just feels moodier, the voicing, it feels cooler. Now, we add some synthesizer on the guitar to double the guitar, bringing it in dance land like here. Right? You know, the chorus
it's
like
building up to like a more electronic sound.
Like live instruments, 50% dance, synth, bass, drums. When we sent our, I call it like my approved version, the one where I felt okay about it and the band felt okay about it. It was probably to OneRepublic at that point.
Yeah.
In the drop, which is like the payoff moment for any given song, dance record, there was something missing. And David, because he's...
And back to the Chris Martin situation, that's why he reached out to Avicii, because especially in that moment, when you're trying to build a dance song, that's the part that a lot of people, even the best producers, can't get right, is that when you get to that drop, getting that impact, that big splash moment of the drop, is really hard for a lot of people, because it takes a lot of understanding of layers and introduction of certain elements that don't necessarily make sense or are kind of random. A really common element that I add in a lot of my drops, and a lot of other skilled producers do, is they'll add a crowd atmosphere chanting sound. It's kind of like a live sound, and it's really random, doesn't make any sense. It's not necessarily musical, it's not an instrument, it's basically background noise. But you add that and it can elevate that drop so much. I might show you an example of that. Well, yeah, I'll show you that maybe in a little bit.
Brilliant had the idea to do this. I forget the name of it, but I'll play you the sound. And like, this is extremely European.
Yeah.
Right? This is not anything that an American DJ or dance record producer would instinctively go to. But David's been doing this so long, he's like working with ChatGPT. If you want a reference for any song you're working on.
If you guys are using AI with your music production or music creation process, let me know how and what drove you to do that and what the results have been for you, because that's something I don't know a lot about. I mean, I've seen like the people using AI vocals and some people have been using AI to write, I guess, chords or I don't know. I want to see more about what's going on there. So let me know about that.
He has, his brain just goes, oh, we could take the bass from this Giorgio Moroder record, and we could take the vocal chop from this Daft Punk record,
that's funny.
and we could take the tempo of Usher, DJ Got Us Falling in Love. His brain just does it in real time. If you don't nail the drop in a dance record, you don't have a hit, you don't have a record. Like that's critical.
That's what I was just saying,
so
guys.
David was like, I'm just gonna go full 1999 Euro, full Euro. Just commit to it and like go so far past almost corniness that it's cool. And that's where we got to this.
Okay.
If this was 5 years...
Yeah, we're in a transition moment right now musically. If you listen to that new Alesso song that he came out with, I think with some country artist, vocalist, he's talking about a lot of the same things, in the essence that he's balancing a little bit of those older sounds with, you know, what they all know now, and kind of combining that, but still trying to make it interesting. And yeah, you tread very lightly on the aspects of cheesiness. You have to balance it, but it seems like, you know, they find that sweet spot. That's what it's all about.
Years ago, or any time really from like the 90s to like 5 years ago, you would have the chorus, and then it goes into the full instrumental drop, which would have like a vocal chop, just a big hooky synth line, something just like this, da 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 da. That's the drop, right? Pretty much instrumental, no real singing over it, and you could go on it for 8 bars, 16 bars. What's brilliant about what David did was for this record, he's like, it needs a drop because it's building. Let's just copy paste the chorus. Let's do a double of the chorus. If you have no vocal.
That's the tricky thing, because when pop and EDM kind of fuse, that's usually the tricky part on the drop. And I think that's why pop artists have a lot of issue with it, is because then they realize that typically on the drop you're not going to have vocals. So if you are a singer in a band and you're performing the song, then you're just kind of stuck there dancing, jumping around. It's not really a part of the song where you're performing it necessarily. You're just kind of enjoying it with the people. That's the beauty of EDM, but for a lot of pop or traditional artists, they're not going to necessarily know what to do in that moment.
What's happening on this at all in a more old school fashion Euro dance record or any kind of dance record? You go, I don't want to wait, I don't want to wait, and you just go instrumental. He took the very like thought out drop, combined it with a chorus. And so in that way, it's modernized. We get to verse 2. I changed the melody a little bit and had some fun with the lyrics. I've been chasing so long, every right that feels wrong, rather be with you instead. There's something about it right here, got me seeing so clear. And then it's pretty much the same build into chorus 2, but I changed the melody in verse 2 and got a little more like metaphoric with the lyrics. After the first chorus, if you did a drop chorus, you can't play that same, because it's like kind of like a magic trick. You can't do it twice, right? So you've got your momentum at this point. We're into only real elements, we're going kind of full on at this point. I'm adding these background vocals. Here we go, like.
Yeah. Okay, that's a cool thing that I haven't thought about too much, but you know, I was talking a little bit about earlier about those kind of crowd chants that you add in a drop to kind of make it sound bigger, you know, not necessarily louder or anything like that, but you make it sound like it's a bigger song. And so, you know, vocals kind of clash sometimes, especially when you have heavy leads in the drop, but maybe something more atmospheric and more like these background vocals that he's talking about, where it's not necessarily just top lines, it's just kind of adding to the atmosphere. That could work to give it that bigger sound. It's subtle, but there's space for it.
Really, the only thing that changes in the second chorus is I'm doing passes of ad libs and vocal.
Yeah, there you go.
Call
Okay.
them like counter melodies to the lead chorus, and you can kind of hear it here, like. Like all those things.
And that's good enough for variance as far as like the second drop, because typically, yeah, you're kind of copy pasting the drops. You might add a fake out, you might add, you know, little variations, or you might double time it, something like that. But with something like this that's kind of pop EDM, you want to keep it not, you know, you don't want to go too crazy. That's a good enough variation for it to be interesting and let people know, okay, it's not as easy as a copy paste. You did something a little bit different, you know.
So you get to the final end of the song, and we're like, okay, let's bring it back to we're a band. Like, Guetta had his 30 seconds of full drop. That's how we ended it. Wanted to kind of bring it back to reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Out of like Euro dance world.
I've heard bits of this song, but this is another one I haven't heard like from beginning to end. Cool. I like it. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, there's a lot of cool little pieces in there that you can take away and apply to your electronic productions, and yeah, just think outside the box. Don't always like you know, even if something as simple as you're scrolling through Splice, don't just look in like the EDM sample packs or whatever. You know, look at acoustic sample packs. Look at I don't know, pop, whatever. You know, just anything different. Keep it interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this. I saw another one. I spoke a little bit about the Alesso breakdown that they had on their channel as well, so I might look at that one next, because that one touches a little bit on country and EDM, so that's pretty interesting to me, especially as a big Avicii fan. You know, that was cool. But yeah, hope you guys liked it.